Welcome to yet another episode of On VJ's playlist, and I have New Delhi-based singer-songwriter Anchit Magee with me, who I must say is quite the sensation right now because his latest EP Adhoore has topped the music streaming platforms everywhere, and he surely is ecstatic about it. But there's also a bit of a sadness to it because one of his collaborators on the EP, Sheil Sagar, unfortunately, we lost a young musician last week, and it's been a bittersweet of. I really cannot explain how it must be feeling for you right now, Anchit. Do you want to firstly let's straight away talk about how Shail has been wonderfully instrumental on Adhure with his contribution to the track Le Chal Yahan Se. Just give us about how did you acquaint yourself to Shail? Because I believe in your Instagram post when you spoke about your fond memories with the young singer-songwriter, you mentioned about how you had not really known each other before you all collaborated on this song. So, how did how did you get acquainted with each other first in the first place?
Hmm. Okay, so Sheil and I have been sort of releasing music at a similar time. We both sort of launched our first songs straight after one another. I think a bit after me, Sheil also released his song, and we've also known each other through the DU music circuit. I was in Venki, he was in Hansraj, so and we were both in the same batch, the same year. So yeah, we got to know each other not that well. We just knew कि हाँ, this is Venki में guitarist and Sheil is the pianist and saxophonist for Hansraj. And Sheil always played the saxophone, so it was kind of a thing that not many saxophone players in Delhi, and he was one of the few. So people were always interested in that. So yeah, we both sort of knew each other, but never really got around to talking that much until the COVID lockdown happened, and everything just went online, and we like I got acquainted with lots of fellow musicians from the DU scene just through online conversations and collaborations. And this was such a collaboration because I've always admired Sheil, but through an outside lens. We've never really had many conversations. So I was looking for a pianist to go with the Le Chal Yahan Se. This was sort of a reworked version of a song I released previously, also Le Chal Yahan Se, but that was a proper acoustic rendition. So I wanted to add like band parts to this. So I just thought of Sheil and he instantly said he's up for it. And yeah, we had a long discussion on what I was looking for, the tones that he was wanting to do it, acoustic piano or MIDI piano, that sort of stuff. And after that, we kind of just, talk with each other about, because we were both sort of navigating this scene together. So yeah, I wouldn't say we were extremely close. But yeah, any doubt we had about some places, some venues, promoters, or stuff like that, we always just talk to each other about it. So that's the extent of how well I knew Sheil. But yeah, through this conversation, through this collaboration, I got to know him a bit better. And I've always admired his work because Sheil was truly a one-of-a-kind musician in terms of the songs he wrote. You can't find songs like that anywhere else. And especially his last release, Mr. Mobile Man, that he did live. He was absolutely perfect in that, by the way, even though he was live. But yeah, that is one of my all-time favorite releases by an indie artist. So yeah, we lost someone that was way too talented. We lost him way too soon. And I hope he rests in peace. I hope his close friends and family, try and do their best to sort of get over this loss.
Strangely, unless until news of his demise did not reach me, I wasn't even aware about him, honestly. And it's actually kind of tragic that sometimes a lot of wonderful talents get discovered after their time. And I had actually discovered Shade because of this tragic news. And the first song I had heard was If I Tried. And I cannot even bring myself to, I mean, I don't think so. Any of us can even comment on how masterfully is that song done. And I'm sure, like you rightly said, 22 is too tender and too soon for somebody to be gone. So, like you rightfully said, Anchit, I hope his loved ones find the strength to overcome this loss, rather irreparable loss. Uh,
Yeah.
Coming to your EP Adhoore, Anchit, I think with the EP, I think what really highly contributes to its success so far on music streaming apps is how personal, how intuitive it is, and somewhere as an artist, I feel, Anchit, it's also helped you come into your own as a voice, as an identity in music. Do you want to tell us about the kind of mind space you were working from when you were conceptualizing this EP?
Yeah. So Adhoore as an EP together was conceptualized much later on. First, there were like three songs that stemmed from the EP. So uh, La Parwa was my first Hindi release, and that song was about trying to live a careless, not exactly careless, but a carefree kind of life where, you're not really caring about what other people think of you or your actions, just letting yourself lose a little. So La Parva was about that. And, before I started releasing music, a few months before that, I lost my dad suddenly. And so, as a person and also as a writer, I've always been kind of a happy writer. Like the music I made, and I still do, it's always been happy, right? Because I am an optimistic kind of a person, so that just translates into happy music. But yeah, this sort of a phase I went through in my life, it led me to release some and write some, sad Hindi songs, because that's just what I was comfortable in, conveying my emotions through that. I felt more comfortable in doing that in Hindi. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just ended up writing a bunch of songs about, the whole thing that I was going through basically. And there are a lot more songs which are just, sad Hindi songs. And yeah, I've written a lot of songs about death and losing someone, and trying to get over that. There was also Try, which I released, which was an
Yeah.
English song. That was the first song I wrote after his death. It was a couple of days after that. So all in all, very cliche, but yes, music was the main factor which helped me, kind of get over what I was going through, because it was so sudden. And you never think about. I was 19, so you never really think about losing your parents at that age, because you're just like, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, they're sort of immortal to you then. So yeah, so that is the place that this EP is from. And I also said in the post some time ago that I don't know when I'll release music like this ever again, because I don't write very sad stuff generally. So the next release will not be like this. But yeah, I had to just get this out there, because I had been hiding most of this for way too long. And yeah, I just felt like if I had to move on into another maybe genre or mood of music, I just had to get through this first. So that is where the EP kind of stems from. Le Chal Yahan Se is about wanting to get away from a dark place, and you're basically asking for help, just like anyone, come and take me away from here. And La Parva is about trying to live carefree. And yeah, a bunch of songs basically just around the same theme. And when I wrote like 4 or 5 songs, then I started to realize, okay, you write, you don't think about something when you're writing it. You're like, huh, I wrote this. Okay, this is what this is about, right? So when I did that, when I wrote 4 or 5 songs, that's when I knew, okay, this is sort of the a similar theme, and I should release these songs together. So that's how the EP came about.
Right. First of all, Anshul, please accept my condolences on the loss of your father. I can understand how heartbreaking it is. And like you rightly said, irrespective of what age you lose parents, that loss can never be comprehended. And I know I can totally relate to you on that. Uh, I think, Anchit, that explains why you are very intuitive about your songwriting and also about the way you make your music. Because I believe even another track of yours, Never Yours, was something that you just wrote within an hour. It was just something that germinated suddenly, and the next thing you knew was you already had a song ready. and you released a brilliantly conceptualized music video also to accompany it. So for our viewers who are watching this for the first time, do you want to quickly take us through how you made that song?
Okay, so basically there are, people write very differently. Every musician is a bit different in terms of how they write. And as a musician, I never like to work on my songs too much, because I feel like if I start doing that, I will never release a song. I will just keep working on it. So I generally have like after the song has been written, and it's done, I basically have a 2-day production rule when I'm like, okay, I'll do this for 2 days. And if I'm happy with it, I will leave it. It doesn't matter if it's like 85% and could be like 15% better, I'm going to leave it. And I'm just going to be happy with it, because then it's like a never ending loop you get stuck in. So that is most of my music. And most of my music has been written in like 2 hours, 3 hours maybe. And, I just leave it at that. I'm like, okay, if I need to get better, I'll get better in the next song. Uh, so that is kind of my philosophy towards writing. And with Never Yours, I will basically Never Yours is basically a loop that there's one riff on the acoustic, and that's going throughout the whole song. So I really like that riff. I just recorded it and just tried to experiment over it, and sort of was going for an electronic feel, because I'd never done that before. So sort of Tame Impala ish. I was going for. So yeah, I just kept putting up layers after layers after layers, and I'm a guitarist, so it's very hard for me to do stuff on the keyboard, but I can add 100 guitars if I want. So I just kept adding, which my engineer does not like very much, but yeah, I just kept adding stuff, and somehow thought of that melody in terms of octaves, because I've never done that as well. Like, you sing twice in the lower octave and twice in the higher octave, and it just becomes such a beautiful sound. So yeah, Never Yours was a result of a lot of experimentation, which I had never done before. And in terms of the video, that was all Aditya, who was a good friend of mine, Aditya Rahul. He was a friend of mine in Venki only. He was in the film stock there. And we were both from the same year. We just, talked a little bit about maybe doing something together, but Never Yours popped around. So I just wanted to make a lyric video, basically. I had never had this thought in my mind at all. So I just told him to make a lyric video for me. And he, graciously accepted the project. And after a while, I was like, bro, what's the scene? And he just ended up sending me like a sort of a raw version of this. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. Scratch the lyric video. Let's just stick with this. Doesn't matter how long it takes. We're just going to do some version of this, because it has to be there. Like, that was his first animation project. So, it was sort of a first time working together, first time for him, first time for me making this kind of music. So that all just came together very well. And at the end, yeah, we got a good product out of it.
Anchit, I believe you're from a family of musicians yourself. Since we spoke about your father, I believe both your father and your grandfather were both percussionists. You're a guitarist yourself, but from what I've read about you, is most of it is self-taught. Do you want to take us down to how your interest stemmed? What were your influences? Do you want to quickly run us down through that?
Sure. Yeah, so music has always been in our family. Started with my grandfather. Even before that, I assumed that it must have been there. But yeah, I've seen my grandfather play tabla a lot. He played with a lot of crews. And that then went to my father, who was a percussionist. He loved playing the djembe. That was his main instrument. And then when I was in like second or third standard, my grandfather tried to teach me tabla, and I even played in some school events and like that. But when you're in fifth, sixth, you're like, hey, no, I'm too cool for tablas. So that just sort of happened with, and now I'm realizing, man, I wish I stuck to it, because it's such a beautiful art. But yeah, I left it then and I focused on my singing. But by ninth standard, I also got bored of my singing. So then I picked up the guitar. And yeah, the guitar was something that I knew I could stick to. I really liked doing that, because as a singer, you kind of have to be a front man kind of a thing, right? And that is never what I can do. So as a guitarist, you can just stay in the background and just be a guitarist, and no one will do anything to you. So that was kind of the goal, but I ended up becoming a singer-songwriter anyway. So that didn't matter much. But yeah, so guitar came in much later. It was a ninth standard. But yeah, I considered myself a full guitarist in the DU circuit. But then I actually went to the DU circuit and saw musicians that were 10 times better than me. So that kind of hit me a little bit. Okay, then, okay, summer school, Noida, there are people better than me also. So that made me, practice a lot. And I would say most of my development came when I was in DU. That really helped a lot, jamming with other musicians of all different genres, no judgment at all whatsoever. And, we had compositions, and it was just a very, very fun time. It was just full, no stress, just jam kind of a thing. And that makes you a very good musician at the end of the day.
Bit of an irony, Anchit, that so much of the music has been self-taught. But interestingly, you are also a teacher in your right now. You, I believe, you teach Western music at Ramage School in New Delhi. So, how did this happen? How did you take to teaching, having been a self-taught musician yourself? Because I was just speaking to another artist, and he's also a self-learned musician himself, but he also believes that a certain sense of mentorship, a certain sense of I won't say validation. I think one needs to evaluate as to what are they learning themselves, because you can never really judge the credentials or the merit of what you're learning. But then when it comes to teaching what you have learned to students, there is a certain sense of responsibility that lies there. So how do you ensure that?
Yeah, so basically, most of my guitar playing has been self-taught, but when I came into DU, that's when I thought, okay, I really need to get better at this. So then I took a lot of guitar lessons from various people, one-on-one, and it was never just a regular thing. But yeah, I always kept learning and kept going to workshops. I kept doing this and that, and I learned from various guitarists and songwriters and songwriting workshops and stuff like that. So, and I made a lot of notes, vigorous notes about everything in terms of songwriting. I still look at a couple of great YouTube channels for that every single day. So I've always been interested in teaching because my mother was a teacher, and so yeah, I love teaching because it can go both ways. Obviously, there are teachers that students hate, absolutely hate. But when you sort of have mentors in your life which are teachers that you respect a lot, and you basically listen to them about, like, you ask them about everything. And I've had such mentors in my life in Western music that I've always talked to, I've always listened to, and even when I get news or songs, I always send it to them, always. So I was hoping for that kind of a bond. So uh, in terms of teaching, yes, I do have a lot of things. I have modules, I have this and that, because teaching is a craft that you get better at every single day. It's not like in my opinion, yes, there are natural teachers and there are teachers that learn, but if you have a certain attitude that you can get better always, and you're not very, very hard on your students and they're willing to learn, I think that you can really, really hone your craft that way and really become a good teacher. And it's a thing that has interested me a lot because I love to see progress, even if it's slow, even if it's fast. But it's just very, very heartwarming to see someone that you've taught from like a long time play their first song or play their first bar chord, or compose music. So that is very heartwarming to see, and I love that. So yeah, that's what got me into teaching. And yeah, let's see how far it goes. But right now, I'm enjoying it very much.
Well, since we began this interview only when we spoke, speaking about loss, Anchit, I think no, I'm not just saying this personally, but I'm sure for all of us universally, uh, it's been a tragic week. The past week where we lost one of the most prominent Indian voices, somebody whose voice embraced our entire generation. I'm speaking KK sir, and I think his untimely demise has really left a lot of us pondering upon the kind of situations and the kind of conditions that musicians are constantly, put through when they have to perform live. You yourself are a regular at the Piano Man Club in Gurgaon. So, if I have to ask you, what are some of the most pathetic conditions that you've had to endure as a performer? And where do you think personally can organizers and the infrastructure present on ground can get it right?
So basically, I've had a very lucky career in terms of live performances. I haven't suffered that much because honestly, yes, I love the piano man. I love to perform there because that's a brilliant venue. But most venues don't do that kind of stuff that they do. And if they don't, then I'm not really interested in performing there. I have the opportunity to say no. And I feel like a lot of people don't have that opportunity or privilege, So I myself have not been through a lot of things that, people say, but that's just because I've had the privilege of actually not performing. I just
Yeah,
don't perform when things don't go my way. And a lot of people don't have that privilege. So, for me, it always starts from the top. So, even though indie organizers, indie PR people, indie musicians, they can only do so much. It'll only get better if proper people get to the top and set things properly. So
yeah,
for example, you have KK, right? What happened to him is very unfortunate, but that happened because there was already such a big crowd there and he didn't want to disappoint those people, so he ended
yeah,
up doing that anyway. But maybe it's also a thing that okay, you can end up disappointing them one day, you can come again. That's sort of selfish, but not really, in my opinion. It's sort
yeah,
of self-care, I would say. And that really needs to be instilled amongst people, because artists are always for the people, they're not for
yeah,
themselves most of the
yeah,
time. And especially veteran musicians like KK, they rarely think about themselves, they only think about their audience.
right.
So I feel like that attitude, hopefully people will start thinking about themselves more. If they feel uncomfortable, they will refuse shows, even if something will go wrong. That's fine. Something can go wrong, at least not as wrong as what went
Yeah,
right now. So basically, I feel like it has to start from the top. The big
yeah,
artists have to do this, then only there will be any real change. Yes, indie organizers will always try and make situations better, right? But they
yeah.
only have so much power that they can change stuff, otherwise they just won't get shows. So yeah, I feel like this has to start from the big Bollywood people.
um, Truly a sign of relief for artists across the board, Anchit, with live shows finally having resumed after what seemed a lull forever. Um, it's a kind of gratifying. It's really very, it's a happy sight actually to witness huge crowds again at these live performances. Of course, now it shouldn't be as immense as what KK sir had to go through, but just a sight of genuine, wonderful, informed audiences who are actually aware of the artist's discography and are there to support the artist in the truest sense. I think it's just wonderful to see how people are now turning up at festivals. People, I think somewhere in the last year and a half or two, the audience also has kind of evolved with the kind of music that they're listening to, and they're also much more aware about what the artist is doing. What do you think? Do you agree on that?
Sure, I think to the start of the question, I absolutely love that everything is back. And for me, it has been a real change because before the lockdown happened, I never went for many gigs. And, it was always kind of just came into college and it was, late nights and that sort of stuff. So I never went basically. And after the live shows has been back, it has been great. I have been to a lot of shows. I recently just went to Darshan Doshi Trio's show that happened in New Delhi, and it was absolutely incredible. I mean, what musicians they are. And there's also a very powerful tool in terms of live gigs, which is discovery. And a lot of people don't talk about that because, for me, for example, I'm not a huge follower of Darshan Doshi's discography, but I know that he's a huge musician. He's very good at what he does. So I ended up going and I discovered some great music that I'm going to be listening to for years now. So, that factor was also missing because I do appreciate online gigs a lot. I don't like, some people hate on them, but I actually do like to experience an online gig. But yeah, the feel is just completely different when you're there with people hanging out, listening to the same kind of music at the same time at the same place. Yeah, so that is just amazing. And if you if you just tell me the second part of the question again.
The second part of my question is, do you think that the audience has also evolved over the last year and a half or two? considering that the pandemic has led to the discoverability of a lot of emerging and young independent musicians in a way.
Yeah. Okay. So that also in as an audience member myself, I would say that we have grown a lot more thankful and grateful that
Yeah.
we get this opportunity to see these artists, right? And also in terms of respect for artists that we have that are touring and doing things, we do respect that how tough it is as a touring musician. So because I'm also an indie musician, I would also love to tour, but it's just not feasible for me at this moment, right? So it is a very tough job to be a touring musician, and I feel like after COVID, the audiences that want to go for these shows has gone up because they want to experience what they've been missing for 3 years. And I feel like that has helped a lot, and the audience has evolved in two ways, which is it has grown, and also it has become more respectful for artists and what they want to do. There are less requests at gigs, and they just watch them perform whatever they have prepared, and stuff like that. So I feel like that has helped a lot in terms of the 3-year gap. I feel like everyone sort of needed that to get their head right, and really acknowledge what they've been missing and what they want.
I'll give you three instances actually. So I was very fortunate to have caught up with Parwa's The Yellow Diary and When I Met Toast. I've been through all the three shows that they've had in Mumbai. And for me
Mm.
personally, it was, I mean, I have always known the music of these three bands and many other artists so over the years. But for me, what was personally very, very satisfying and emotionally overwhelming to watch was the audiences actually, like the artist did not have to sing. The audience is singing before the artist does, and they know the lyrics by heart. So it was very, very it was a very heartfelt sight for me to witness that the audience actually now knows these acts. There are, of course, the mainstream acts. They are popular. They are marketed better. They are, of course, there's so much machinery put behind them. But we have acts within us, amongst us, and now they're as popular and they're as out there as the mainstream act. And in fact,
Yeah.
I won't hesitate to say that they're much popular in a way, than the mainstream acts now.
For sure.
Anchit, how do you view, since I mean, I've never been to Delhi, so for me, whatever little I can gather about Delhi, it's very, very from a hearsay perspective. But you are a resident and you are a very active musician who performs in the Delhi music circuit. Um, Speaking of evolving taste, do you think the capital city also in its own right has become a huge breeding ground for musicians of your kind?
Oh, for sure. I mean, Delhi always has a huge advantage in terms of the Delhi University, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like 90% of all the musicians in the Delhi circuit are from there and have been from there at some point. So yeah, I feel like that helps a lot because the music societies, the film societies, the dance societies they're just full of creative people that just want to, do something together basically. And that kind of environment really gives you a lot of confidence in yourself as a musician and also in trusting other people to do their job. So I feel like, for example, that changed the game for me completely when I went into DU. So
Right.
I feel like that made me a musician like 10 times better easily than I would have been without the Delhi University. So, yeah, in terms of a breeding ground, I would say in almost every competition, there are about 15 originals that are played. And it doesn't matter how good or bad they are originals in the first place, right? And there are 18, 19-year-olds concocting them and playing them live in front of an audience. So, you don't get those sorts of opportunities everywhere. And really promoting original music is something that the DU Fest do very well. So that was my first taste of compositions as well. I had written a few lyrics and here and there and tried to do something, but I never really got how to make a song properly. I only
Right.
got that at DU when jamming with other people, and eventually I was able to do that. So yeah, in terms of a breeding ground, I would say not many things better than what's happening in Delhi right now.
Well, before we sum up this interview, Anchit, I wanted to ask, Adhoore is out there. A lot of young, listeners are still taking towards listening to the entire EP. But what next from here?
Uh, so up next, I have something which is a very different genre. I'm sort of drifting towards indie pop kind of a thing, and it's going to be an English EP next, most
Okay.
probably if everything goes well. It's in the process of being recorded right now, and if everything goes well, I'll release it maybe in December this year or next year. Let's see
Okay.
what happens. Maybe I'll do a few singles before that. But yeah, in terms of a genre and mood shift, it's definitely going to change a lot. So I hope people will keep their minds open and react to it well, because it's really different from Adhure. And I've always liked to do that, because you write the music that you listen to, in my opinion. And if
Yeah.
you listen to everything, you will write everything. I've written 15-minute Steven Wilson like prog songs that have never gone down well, but I've tried to write them anyway. And I've also written Tame Impala and Jason Mraz and all that kind of stuff. And of course, John Mayer is a very favorite artist of mine. So, he's been a huge influence for me. So, yeah, I hope people react to the change well. I can just hope I'll end up doing whatever I want anyway at the end of the day. So, yeah, I hope people like that.
Well, all I can say is onwards and upwards. Anchit, thank you so much for talking to me today on VJ's playlist, and I wish you the very best for all the wonderful music you're about to bring our way.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks.